Welcome back to Real Florida TV. Our guest today is Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite. Mainstreet Broadband has gone away. For any of you who live in the rural areas of Northwest Florida, you're probably familiar with Mainstreet Broadband. They came in, offered a very cost-effective, very fast internet connectivity option. And we're going to be talking to Andy about what has happened. If you've got Mainstreet, you've still got service for the most part, but that's probably going to go away very quickly. We're going to talk to Andy about Mainstreet Broadband. We're going to talk about the internet in general, have a little bit of fun with that, and maybe pick Andy's brain a little bit and find out what's going on in technology in general. You're watching Real Florida TV, and if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, or maybe there's something you'd like to see featured, just give us a call, drop us an email, or visit our website at realfloridatv.com. We'll be right back with more from Real Florida TV.
Welcome to the people, events, and business of the Real Florida. Real Florida magazine highlights the pristine, unspoiled Florida, from special events to businesses to just getting away from it all. Real Florida magazine offers a taste of the real Florida, the way it's supposed to be. Available free of charge almost everywhere. So take a deep breath, relax, and get back to what's important. Check us out at realfloridamagazine.org. We'll be waiting for you. Women's Day magazine calls the Wausau Possum Festival one of the most unique festivals in the world. But maybe we'll just let you decide. It's time for the Wausau Possum Festival in historic Wausau, Florida. A parade, live music, entertainment for the kids, arts and crafts, and a celebration of the possum. Brought to you by One South Bank in Chipley, Florida. 92.5 WPAP, News 13, and the Goulding Agency. Visit WausauPossumFestival.com.
Welcome back. As mentioned, our guest today is Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite in Chipley, Florida. You've got lots going on with the controversy about Mainstreet. So, first of all, thanks for taking the time, Andy, to join us this morning.
Sure.
Mainstreet Broadband. Why don't you tell us what Mainstreet Broadband is or was, and what's going on with that controversy that we're hearing about in the news?
Well, basically, Mainstreet Broadband was the end phase of the North Florida Rural Broadband Association, and their point was to get broadband into homes affordable with no setup cost, and it was working extremely well. The service was very, very stable. People had the options of a slower speed or higher speed depending on if they wanted to do streaming or not. And there was no setup cost, so it was also very affordable, and no phone line was required, which was the nicest thing because the only alternative for most people was either satellite internet like HughesNet or Wild Blue or DSL, which the DSL has really not been up to par like it should be.
Yeah, you know, and I think we've talked about this on other shows as well. Last year, or perhaps the year before, my wife and I were looking at our budget for our business and realized we were paying an inordinate amount for a phone line and a DSL line. And the DSL line was fast enough for our purposes, certainly, and we shoot a lot of large video files all over the country in some of the production that we do. But it was really too expensive. So I told my wife to call AT&T and to cancel. Well, they got a retention specialist on the phone, and they doubled our service and halved our price, and we said, sure, absolutely. But what they didn't tell us is that if you had a disruption in service, and at that time, as I told the salesperson, we were getting ready to move to another suite in the same building, that if you had that disruption in service, that the highest speed that would be then available to you would be a fraction of what they were selling me. In any case, once we determined that, we also at about that same time found out about Mainstreet Broadband. Now, Mainstreet Broadband made available to us for less than $50 a month the ability to have very fast upload and download speeds, and again at a very affordable price, and we were able to get it within a day's time. It was a no-brainer, and what was interesting is that we just dropped AT&T, and we were never dunned, we were never sent a bill, we were never harassed for breaking our contract. So they sort of proved to us that they didn't want our business. And I subsequently found out through some of their own people here locally in the Chipley area that that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to they're trying to divest themselves of their wired service and go to strictly wireless. Now, in the case of Mainstreet, that's exactly what that was. And in the Chipley area, they have a transmitter, their dish, on the PAEC tower in downtown Chipley. Talk a little bit about the service and the radius in which you could find that service, and overall what you found once that was available.
Well, they had the transmitter towers. They had one in Bonifay, Chipley, Cottondale, and they had two in Mariana. It was fiber optic to the towers, and then it was wireless from the tower to the customer's house. We had either indoor units that we could put in if they lived within a close enough radius. If they lived in a little bit more of a challenging area, we had an outdoor unit we could put in. From that point, it was plugged in either to a wireless router if they wanted to have a wireless solution, or they could just plug it straight into their tower or laptop and use it that way.
Fast speeds. We had
and stable.
6 down, almost 3 up, and consistent. And we had no problems at all. I guess we had it for a total of 6 or 7 months, something like that. One of your competitors, who also was an installer in this area, actually we were the first installation that he had made in this area, but I don't think he pushed it. I understand that you are not only one of the larger installers and retailers for Mainstreet Broadband in this area, but possibly in their entire area.
Yeah. I believed in the product because it was really good. We had great feedback from customers. They really enjoyed it, and it fit the niche perfectly. Like you said, I could tell that AT&T was letting things slip, and there didn't seem to be any concern that they were letting it slip. And so I really pushed it. I spent a lot of money and time advertising the product, and I was actually their #1 agent and installer for the entire company. As a matter of fact, the last month I broke all the records.
Now, you say that you were one of the larger installers, if not the largest, that you broke the records, and I understand that they gave you a trip and they gave you prizes and premiums for being that status.
Right.
But what people don't understand, and looking behind the curtain in the case of the Wizard of Oz analogy, is that you actually were financing a lot of this yourself, some of which you were getting in monthly checks, but you were considerably behind as far as your investment compared to income. And I understand that you sort of got left holding the bag.
A pretty big bag, fairly large. Yes, I would do the installations and everything up front, so I was immediately out. The time, labor, fuel it took it to go on site, plus all the parts and everything that were used. Plus, I did considerable amount of advertising, which I was going to get reimbursed for with co-op. Well, now I'm not getting paid for any of the installations. None of the commissions, but I'm still out the real money that I paid for my fuel, for my parts, and of course the time. I wasn't getting home till after 9 o'clock just about every night, as a lot of customers who I put in will know. They were always amazed that it would be 7 o'clock and there I was crawling through their attic underneath their house to get this service put in for them. But it was a good service. I knew it worked well, and of course with business, if you put a product in and people are happy with the service, they're going to refer you. And that was really the worst thing, is that last month the referrals were really starting to come in. People are saying, hey, call Andy, he'll get this stuff put in for you. I was actually able to put people in who Mainstreet themselves weren't even going to attempt to put in, because on their service map it would show that this person lived outside the area or would be too weak. I'd go out and give the customer options. Hey, we have 30-foot and push-up poles we can use. So I put in considerable customers that were told no to begin with, and of course they were all very happy. The worst thing is, and the thing that, matter of fact, about 3 o'clock this morning I woke up, wasn't able to sleep, is that a lot of the customers who made the decision to go over to Mainstreet Broadband dropped their DSL service. And for those who aren't aware, for a lot of people, once you drop your DSL service, that's it, because there's other people who are on a waiting list, and as soon as you drop your service, that channel's given to the other person, so there essentially is no going back.
Andy, my experience with Mainstreet Broadband, they came, they installed this, working with the retailer from whom I actually made the purchase. If I had a question or complaint, a couple times it did go down, they immediately got to me, told me what was going on. They were working on a tower or something like that. I had nothing but good to say about them, and still don't have anything bad to say about them. And obviously, if I am not able to make provisions for a different connectivity before it goes out, it may be a little different situation. What was your relationship with them?
Well, I've been in business since 1984. A lot of people know I used to own the Radio Shack here in town. And I've dealt with a lot of large companies, and I can honestly say one thing that really sold me in this company, I've never dealt with people who were dedicated to make something work, which is one of the reasons it's so sad that it's been allowed to crash. They were there. If I called, they answered their phone. I mean, you know, when you call most companies, you get voicemail. They don't answer the phone. I would call, and my area rep would answer. If he did not answer the phone, it meant he was on a call, and within 3 or 4 minutes, he called me right back. So I was able to get quick responses to any problems or anything we came up with. They were a very good, very dedicated team. They were really working to make this work well, which is really floored them, because you can imagine, here they are working, and they all get phone calls and told, you gentlemen no longer have a job, you know, go home. You know, that's it. So I hate it because the best company I've ever worked with is no longer in business, that's a tragedy.
Fair to say that you're in the hole for thousands of dollars?
5 figures, yes.
Wow. When we come back, I'd like to talk about options. I'd like to talk a little bit more about what you referred to, that people as recently as this and last week had installs done by you and other installers. And as you pointed out, probably the worst part of that is that now they can't go backwards and they can't recapture the service that they had in some cases.
Right.
Are you able to stay around for the second half of the show?
Sure.
Thanks for being here today.
Sure.
You're watching Real Florida TV, and today our guest is Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite, talking about Mainstreet Broadband, or no Mainstreet Broadband, as the case may be. When we come back, we're going to talk to Andy about some of your options if you're one of those folks who have been or will soon be affected by this. And this is probably something you're going to want to pay attention to. You're watching Real Florida TV, and if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, or maybe there's something you'd like to see featured, just give us a call, drop us an email, or visit our website at realfloridatv.com. We'll be right back with more from Real Florida TV.
Welcome to the people, events, and business of the Real Florida. Real Florida magazine highlights the pristine, unspoiled Florida, from special events to businesses to just getting away from it all. Real Florida magazine offers a taste of the real Florida, the way it's supposed to be. Available free of charge almost everywhere. So take a deep breath, relax, and get back to what's important. Check us out at realfloridamagazine.org. We'll be waiting for you. Women's Day magazine calls the Wausau Possum Festival one of the most unique festivals in the world. But maybe we'll just let you decide. It's time for the Wausau Possum Festival in historic Wausau, Florida. A parade, live music, entertainment for the kids, arts and crafts, and a celebration of the possum. Brought to you by One South Bank in Chipley, Florida. 92.5 WPAP, News 13, and the Goulding Agency. Visit WausauPossumFestival.com.
Welcome back. We're here today with Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite in Chipley, Florida, talking about what a lot of people are buzzing about the last couple of days, and that's Mainstreet Broadband. Thanks for sticking around for the second half of the show. As I mentioned in the first half, I'd like to talk about some of the options that people have if they are affected. But let's go back a little bit first. Mainstreet Broadband, which we have here in our office, is still active.
Yes.
We've been told that Mainstreet has shut their doors, they've fired all their employees. How is that happening? Why is Mainstreet still coming through the airwaves and still providing the internet connectivity?
It's basically right now just moving on its own momentum. It's kind of like the best analogy I know. It's kind of like when you were little and you made the little paper boats and you would push it off in the pond. That's kind of the way it is right now, and it's moving on its own momentum. If something right now were to happen to the tower here in Chipley, a channel went down or something, there's nobody to fix it at all. If something happened with the power, there's nobody to fix it. So right now, if as customers contact us, I'm telling them any minute it could go off. Now it could be on for 3 more months. We have no idea, and there's no one that we can contact. It literally was, I was actually on my way to a job July 31st in Marianna, about in front of Bob 40 Motors, when I was called by my area rep. He told me to pull over. And it kind of struck me as odd. He doesn't know my family, so I knew it couldn't, normally when you hear pull over, it's a family member or something. And he said, he said, I don't know how to tell you this. He said, but we're no longer a company. He said the government had shut them down. It was not a decision by Mainstreet Broadband or any of the employees. The government basically decided that they were not going to fund it anymore. And the government put so many regulations and stipulations on Mainstreet that it made it where they had to be government funded because they weren't allowed to charge for installations. They weren't allowed to offer, they were very limited on the packages they could offer, the pricing they could offer. So the government basically made it to where in order for them to be, they had to run their business in such a way to where they had to perpetually have this government money coming in seeding it. And of course, as soon as the government quit seeding it, well, it was the business model itself couldn't work. No private individual would have ever set a business up to work the way Mainstreet was forced to work.
So you have broadcast antennas on towers. You have fiber optic going to those towers.
Right.
You have signal coming from somewhere, and I know Alpharetta, Georgia was one of or if not the hub for Mainstreet Broadband. Potentially, in a perfect world, could another company come in or the government make opportunity available to some other company to come in and basically just take that over and open the doors and start right back up again?
I actually asked that very question this morning, and the answer I was given in Decatur County, Georgia, they're really in a bind because the county themselves ponied up $2.5 million to help subsidize. In Decatur County's case, since they subsidize the installations, it's their equipment, and they're in the process right now of trying to take over those MAC addresses, take over the service. I can't even imagine what's entailed in that. As far as for our area, there's nobody to contact. It's the U.S. Department of Agriculture, RUS, the Rural Utility Services, and they basically aren't talking. After they gain control of everything, from what I understand right now, everything's kind of in a limbo. Mainstreet's closed, but the equipment doesn't belong to RUS. They haven't actually gone in and claimed the equipment or anything yet. Once that's done, are they going to auction it off? Are they going to offer it to someone? Who knows? The business model could work, but it would have to be done without government interference to where real marketplace pricing and everything was able to come in. I think it would work well because broadband is something all of us need, especially for business.
Was the business model flawed to the point where it wouldn't make sense to a private entrepreneur, a business person who has to work by the spreadsheets and satisfy his stakeholders? Is it possible that could be tweaked to actually work for a communication company?
If the government restraints were taken off to where they could charge for the installation. Because I started doing satellite internet back in the year 2000 when Starband first came out. Back then, it was $800 installed, and I had people lined up, and this was 12 years ago I had people lined up for it. I always thought from the beginning it would not be unreasonable to offer people to come on with the service to pay for the equipment and the installation. Even if that was $400 or $500, if they were offered service for $20, $25 a month, they'd be way ahead of the game within a year. And after that, they would really have a big discount because with AT&T, people are forced to have a phone line if they want to have DSL. And so far, I haven't spoken to a customer yet who is paying under $80 for that. So that's $960 a year, which that's real money, and that's something they have to pay for every year because nowadays most people would just soon be cell phone only. Actually, I've put in this service for a lot of people who kind of joke that one person didn't even have a phone in their house. They had no intention of using the landline. They had it strictly for the DSL. And of course, they've now turned that service off. But back to your question, the government would have to take the restraint off to where somebody could come in and make real decisions to where they could price it in a reasonable way to where the customer got great service, but also the company could sustain itself and not be on the hook to where the government, because one thing with this is the government's killed. I cannot imagine an entrepreneur coming in and wanting to form a relationship with the government again because they have already proven that at any minute, that they would come in and just shut them down for no reason whatsoever, just because the government just all of a sudden got tired of it and decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And as me and you know, as businessmen, we're not going to risk capital unless we think we're going to get a return, which is why I fronted up so much money with this because I thought I was going to get a return on it. Of course, money got fronted and there's no return, but that's the business world.
We talked about the potential opportunities or alternatives. I'm going to have you talk about Dish Network and what they offer
Sure.
here in a second. So there are other satellite alternatives. DSL through the phone lines with somebody like AT&T, and they're the only ones that offer service here. Or if you are fortunate enough to be in an area that provides cable, Bright House Cable, the only cable company in Washington County currently, they offer an alternative, and it looks like we're going to be forced to go that route because
Right.
we've already gone the AT&T route, as you point out, very expensive, and they no longer offer high-speed access. They
Right.
literally do not offer high enough speed DSL service to satisfy our requirements. Dish Network offers Exceed. Talk a little bit about that product.
Sure. Exceed is owned by Viasat. It's using one of the newest satellites that's up in orbit. It is extremely good service. A lot of people had relatives wherever who were on HughesNet or Wild Blue, and they know that while that was at the time was a great option because it's far better than dial-up, there was a lot of issues with it. I mean, there were just a lot of issues. With Exceed, they've overcome a lot of those issues. I've put a lot of these systems in already, and the customers love it. I actually had one customer who moved from an area where they had DSL to a place that didn't, and we couldn't put in Mainstreet for them, so they had me put in the Exceed, and they said the Exceed actually worked far better than their DSL ever did. The only problem with satellite internet is it's kind of like with you can get the Verizon Air cards that you can use at your house, but the only problem is you do have bandwidth caps. Now, the Exceed is far more giving than like Verizon is, because with them I think it's like $40 or $50 a month, and you only get like 2 or 3 gigs, and then it can really ramp up from there. With Exceed, the base service runs $49.99 a month, and they do give you 10 gigs per month that you can use. And they do have the allocations where the customer can buy more bandwidth if they choose to. So the main thing with Exceed is I tell people it just would not be suitable at all for video streaming, for like Netflix or Hulu, anything like that, because you use almost a gig an hour when you're streaming those services. I actually checked this morning. As a matter of fact, if you're watching something in high definition, it's probably more around 2 gigs an hour. It was just really just eating up the bandwidth because I wanted to know what I could tell people. But now it's fantastic for watching like YouTube videos, things like that, your basic internet streaming. If you need to, surfing, if you needed to download files, it downloads extremely fast. And I've even got one customer I installed for, and their teenage son's gaming with it. And with satellite internet, anybody that's had HughesNet or Wild Blue knew you could not game with them at all. You couldn't even begin to. And with this, the gaming service was working real well. Now, HughesNet is coming out with what they call their Generation 4 satellite internet, which will be launched later in the year. It's not available right now. The Exceed is actually available right now. The HughesNet, there's still some questions on how well it's going to work, if it's going to be, as good as Exceed or possibly even better. But with satellite internet, one thing, you're always going to have the bandwidth caps. But now AT&T's imposed bandwidth caps also now. It's 150 gigs, which right off the bat somebody would say, well, 150 gigs, that's incredible. Who in the world would ever use that? But if you live here in town and you've tried to stream high definition Netflix, you find out that 150 gigs, you can hit it pretty quickly.
What is the cap on Exceed?
10 gigs. 10 gigs, and then they also offer a 15 gig and a 25 gig. I can't remember the pricing on that. Right now, if you get it through Dish Network, you get the 10 gigs. Now, if let's say they contacted Exceed themselves and got it straight from the company, it's 7.5 gigs. Dish Network did negotiate a much better deal. It's better pricing, better upfront costs, and you get more bandwidth going through Dish Network.
And to your credit, not only have you sent out a letter to all of the folks for whom you've installed Mainstreet Broadband, but you're also you negotiated with Dish, and you're able to waive that installation fee upwards of $100.
Right.
If they want to go that route. Is that correct? Right.
Any customer who because I feel, even though I had no idea what was going to happen, I still feel responsible because I'm the face. I mean, let's face it. The Mainstreet Broadband, if you talk to them on the phone, they were somebody at the other end of the phone. I'm the face of it. I'm the person that they saw. I showed up at their house, put it in, got them to sign the contract, and left. Which, incidentally, your contract, of course, is null and void, and you also owe nothing else for the service. So if you do have a Mainstreet bill come in the mail, don't pay it. I'm sure the government would keep the money. But with Dish Network, there is a $99 setup fee for the Exceed. Any customer who I installed Mainstreet for, I'm waiving that. So there will be no upfront cost to the customer whatsoever.
When we come back, we're going to wrap this up with Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite. and talk a little bit about how this might impact you. You're watching Real Florida TV, and if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, or maybe there's something you'd like to see featured, just give us a call, drop us an email, or visit our website at realfloridatv.com. We'll be right back with more from Real Florida TV.
Welcome to the people, events, and business of The Real Florida. Real Florida magazine highlights the pristine, unspoiled Florida, from special events to businesses to just getting away from it all. Real Florida magazine offers a taste of the real Florida, the way it's supposed to be. Available free of charge almost everywhere. So take a deep breath, relax, and get back to what's important. Check us out at realfloridamagazine.org. We'll be waiting for you. Women's Day magazine calls the Wausau Possum Festival one of the most unique festivals in the world. But maybe we'll just let you decide. It's time for the Wausau Possum Festival in historic Wausau, Florida. A parade, live music, entertainment for the kids, arts and crafts, and a celebration of the possum. Brought to you by One South Bank in Chipley, Florida. 92.5 WPAP, News 13, and the Goulding Agency. Visit WausauPossumFestival.com.
Welcome back. As mentioned, our guest today is Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite in Chipley, Florida. We're talking about Mainstreet Broadband. We're talking about what's going to be some heartburn for some people. We posted on several of our Facebook pages and some of our news sites yesterday the news that Mainstreet was no longer, but there are still a lot of people that don't know this.
Right.
Have you been getting a lot of calls at your office?
We're getting some calls. Mainstreet was not allowed to send out any emails or anything to let anybody know anything because basically the government seized everything.
Did they know in advance?
No, they actually, Mainstreet Broadband actually went in, the representatives actually went in to meet with RUS, the Rural Utility Service Commission. And as far as they knew, they were led to believe that everything was agreed upon. The loan was going to be renewed to where they could keep service and everything going. They had every expectation. They even handed over a sizable amount of money in form of a cashier's check. And as soon as the government got the money, they basically put it in the briefcase, shut it, and said, "You gentlemen are now out of business," and turned around and walked off. They were told by some of the people that, you know, you've got almost 8,000 people who they're connected through Mainstreet. You're leaving these people with no alternative. Their service is going to be shut off, and a lot of these people have no other, they can't go back to DSL. And there was basically no one from the government really cared. That wasn't their issue. That wasn't their problem.
Well, between online news sources and email, not to mention Facebook.
Right.
And Facebook has taken on a life of its own.
Yes, it has.
We have found that we can effectively promote certain products and customers and clients of ours and affect a huge amount of public relations, especially using Facebook prudently. Just a matter of time, as you point out, it could be months, it could be hours. I may go back to my desk after this interview.
May have no service.
You've done, it sounds like, everything that you can. At the end of that day, if I was your client and I had just let go of DSL that I know I can't get back, if I had no access to any cable, I'd be pretty upset. But
Yeah.
You hope that people will be calm and collected and accept. And hopefully this is going to give that opportunity for people to hear in your own words what's going on as well. That's
true. And we are sending out emails right now. Matter of fact, I've got my employee right now doing, past 3 days, we've been doing nothing else but sending emails out. We're sending them one at a time because I don't want everybody's email address to show up. So you'll be getting an email with just your email address up at the top. So that way you won't be seeing everybody else's email address. Explaining the situation to them. Because like I said, right now, everything is just dark. There is going to be no communication from the government. There can be no communication from Mainstreet Broadband. All their email accounts have been shut down. So they were basically silenced. And I'm sure if this really ever hits the fan where it gets out in the national media, I imagine you're probably going to hear somebody from the government come out and complain that Mainstreet let people down, that they did not contact people. They didn't even have the common courtesy to contact their customers to let them know, when in fact they were blocked from being able to do that. So I'm contacting everybody who I installed for.
Well, and we're certainly not conspiracy theorists or anything like that, but you would like to think that decency had prevailed as much as possible. And there may be more to this, in all fairness.
That's true.
Than we know.
That's true.
So if you're one of those, sounds like thousands and thousands of people affected by this, be aware. If you've got Main Street, you're probably still up right now, and who knows how long that will go. So take the opportunity to check out your options. Andy Shack, owner of Clear Choice Satellite in Chipley, Florida. Certainly we're not suggesting that you should do business with Andy. He's a good guy, so make your choice yourself, but he certainly has one of those options. Thank you for taking the time.
Sure.
This is a tough time for you.
Very.
It's kind of like having a recall when you just sold 10 million bottles of baby aspirin, and all of a sudden you're the guy whose picture's on the newspaper front page as that guy who sold you that thing. I know that you have done business with some folks in town here who, as we did, kept their existing service in an overlap to make sure that Main Street did as advertised.
Exactly.
And so are okay. How many people, and this is just a wild guess I know, of the people who you've provided service and installed for, how many of those are really in that hot seat where they have no options and they're literally not going to have service?
There's actually quite a few. You get people who are especially on the east end of Highway 90 going out between Chipley and Cottondale, because that's where the DSL service was very limited, and it was one of those cases where if they drop it, that's it. There's a business over in Cottondale, in Bonifay, who luckily I did not sell and install for. This business spent several $1,000s out of pocket to be able to provide wireless internet for their business. I don't want to use their name, but basically they have a business in such a place where people would want to be able to be used as a hotspot. And they spent a lot of money because they wanted to be able to offer a 30 meg service. And they were paying $800 a month. Now what?
Wow. Well, you know, this is probably the first time that we've covered this kind of a story, but it's probably not going to be the last. As we have technology develop, as the newest and the best and the greatest come out, there are certain glitches and certain unseen pitfalls that go along with those. So who knows?
Right.
Andy, again, thanks for taking the time. The best of luck. We appreciate your forthcoming spirit and attitude. And if I were your customer and I were in that situation, I would certainly be giving you the benefit of that doubt because of that. So the best of luck with all of that.
I appreciate that. I'm going to need it.
You're watching Real Florida TV, and if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, or maybe there's something you'd like to see featured, just give us a call, drop us an email, or visit our website at realfloridatv.com. Hopefully you'll still have internet access so that you can go to our website. We'll be right back.